I'm gonna have to take off this the stock what was the tranny side mount on the D series, and to do that I'm gonna drill out all these little spot welds that hold these bad boys on here, so that we can weld on this mount. This is just an old used set of mounts I got for like $100. You would drill holes through here and run long bolts all the way through this frame rail. We're probably just gonna row set weld those in, weld this into the chassis and just make it a permanent mount. I don't plan on pulling it off anytime soon, and if I ever have to take it off, I will just cut this sucker off of here. So yeah, we'll go about drilling out these spot welds. This is a spot weld removal tool. It has a spring-loaded, it's really tough loaded, a spring-loaded center drill on here that should push in so that this little like hole saw on the outside can just cut down just the outside of it. So we can take a spring-loaded punch, try and get as close to the center as possible, and that'll give us a little starting point. That's gonna help. That would usually be enough to hold this tip in place so it doesn't just walk around, especially like a hole saw without a centering pin. It's just worthless. So we'll snap that in there, and then we're going to use a normal center punch. We'll hammer it even deeper, just since that's a pretty good size center drill on the little spot weld removal tool. So I'll smack an even bigger dent to really hold that in there good, and then we'll drill those suckers out, and then hammer the sucker off here. Weld this bad boy in. I'll probably grind all the rest of the paint off it, so when I go to paint the engine bay, it'll just match the rest of it. And that's it for now. Oh, also, that being said, there's no reason you can't just get a drill bit and blast all the way through the frame rail holes. Like if you don't want to get a spot weld remover tool and you're like me, you're just gonna weld everything anyways, there's no reason you can't just drill straight through these, drill a big enough hole to make it real easy, and just weld those in and grind them back down, especially if you're gonna weld another mount over it. So I did the last one, and I'm sure that hard to reach ones like this one back here, it's gonna be way easier to get with a drill bit versus trying to get in there with the spot weld removal tool. Just whatever works best for you. All these little guys are center punched. I'm not sure you can blast them out of there. Drilled. This one kind of blew through. I was coming at it a little too much of an angle. Yeah, this one's just a real pain in the ass to get to because can't really come straight down into it. So I'm gonna knock the mount off and try and just bend that corner back and forth till it breaks. See if that works. But yeah, should be able to just kind of put something in here and pound it. Yeah. I'll just prying the whole thing away. If there's a little bit of meat still holding in there, I'll just jump back in there and cut it out more. But yeah, basically how the whole thing's gonna come off of there. Just managed to throw a pry bar in there and like work my way all the way around it, getting everything off. There's still this one right there that I just can't get to. A little bit of meat holding on in that one, but I think we can just get ghetto and do a little bend back and forth, and we should be able to just knock that corner off, grind off what's left, and we only got one hole to weld in. The rest of them are not too bad. So well, it actually came right off. That was about 100 times easier than last time I did this. So I'll just I might just add a little bit of weld filler on all those, and then grind them down flat so I can throw this other mount in place. It uses some classic stuff down here in the way. But it uses these bolts for location, so I haven't welded those suckers in yet. And it'll go right there when I finish taking this crap off. Next up is attaching this motor side mount for the K-series motor. These mounts have two bolts that usually go through them, so it's gonna it would hang out all the way out over here. I think I'm just gonna cut it off right here since I'm gonna weld it anyways, and I can just use one of these bolts as a locator, bolt it down, and weld everything I can around it. I don't really need this piece overhanging. I see they did that so they can put two bolts to hold the whole thing on and let it cantilever out, but I'm gonna weld it. So I think I'll just slice it right off here and just kind of weld it on instead of keeping all this extra stuff I don't really need on the side there. Just hit this with the bandsaw to pull half it off. Don't really need all that. It's got enough room enough spots I can weld it onto there. And then I'll probably make little sheet metal inserts to go on both sides there to fill in that gap and weld it in. Try and get it completely sealed all the way around so that any of the metal behind it doesn't rust over time. Decided to get even skinnier with this mount and cut the bottom off it too. I really don't need that much meat holding it on, especially if I'm gonna just go around and weld the whole thing on, then it really doesn't need this bottom piece either. And there's this big dent right here. I didn't want to have to make little filler plates or weld the whole thing in with filler, so I just cut off the bottom. I'm just gonna weld that in just like the rest of it, but it's much skinnier now. This is the hole where the original throttle cable came through the firewall from the pedal. The original cable had a plastic connector you put on, you twist, and that's kind of what locks it in place. I don't really have a way to make one of those. I mean, I guess I could 3D print one, but I'd rather just keep this really simple. So I'm gonna weld this slug in here, put another backer behind it for reinforcement, and weld that slug in. Drill a hole through the center of it, weld a nut to the back of it, so I could use a regular cable adjuster like you would a motorcycle throttle cable, a motorcycle clutch cable, a brake cable, or a bicycle cable. We'll have 1/4-inch ferrules, really standard cable stuff. Won't need to actually adjust it from here. Really, this is just gonna bolt, this little bolt hole's gonna stick through, and we'll put a center adjuster in the center of the cable somewhere to take up any slack we need to get rid of. So we'll get rid of this instead of trying to 3D print a plastic thing to go in there. We'll just make our own. We're gonna make our own cables anyway, so we can route it however we want. So we might as well just fill this guy in. I used half of the diameter of the slug and scribed a little arc through there so that where they cross, we know that's the center. Then I can center punch that before I weld it in the firewall, and it'll be exactly where the center is and where the center of the hole was for the stock cable. So we'll go ahead and get that going. Got the initial throttle cable hole filled in with the metal slug, and now I have a backing plate behind there. I drilled an 1/8-inch hole through it and through the original slug, so I can throw a cleco through there and it's gonna hold them perfectly centered. And then that'll be the center hole I need to drill out when I weld in this nut that will hold that adjuster on. and I think I'll have enough room to weld it on the other side. And that little backing piece that's behind there, the 1-inch slug, that'll give enough footing to weld this on flat. Pick and pull hack. When you go to buy something and it's two separate assemblies, because you got your clutch pedal assembly and your brake and throttle assembly, they're going to charge you for two pedal assemblies. I just bolted them together and it's one pedal assembly. Perfect hack.